So Brent, we'll turn the time over to you. Actually, we'll do it in just a second. I'll throw the ball to you. Okay, you should just have to accept that.
All right, I think I got it.
Okay, I've got your page.
See that okay?
Got it.
All right, good morning, everybody. Just going to go into some incident investigation today and talk about a few things about how this can benefit your organization. And having done some of these over my career, I've sat in on a few of them, and I've learned that each one is a little bit different, and there's some things that you can learn and take out of them. So today we're going to look at what the benefits are to an incident investigation, how that can benefit you, how to conduct it, who should be involved, and some techniques as far as that goes. So there's some things that we can all really learn from this. One thing here, I have a quote I want to share with you, and it says that those who do not learn from their mistakes are bound to repeat them. And I'm sure some of you have heard of these types of things before. And what better way to improve than learn from your own mistakes, right? So we all make mistakes as humans. We've all made mistakes in our lives. But why not stop repeating them? Why don't we learn from them? What keeps us from improving and repeating those same mistakes? And then on the other hand, what better way to learn from some mistakes than learn from somebody else? So if you see somebody that's done something wrong, they've had an accident, an injury, or some type of a loss, why not learn from the things that they've learned? And then you don't have to go through those hardships and have those same trials that they might have had. So that's what incident investigations can do for us, is look into those types of things. Figure out, what happened, what are the details, why did an event occur, why is there some type of loss or injury or damage, and then put things in place that you can overcome that and not have to go through those hardships and losses. So that's what it's all about. Really, incident investigation is a tool. It's a tool that we can all use where we work and even in our own personal lives to think about things to improve on. So why do we do incident investigations? There's a few reasons here. One of the main reasons is to prevent losses, right? Losses from injuries, accidents, property damages, things like that, even financial losses. Also to prevent incident reoccurrence. We don't want to have the same things happening over and over again when we could prevent that. There's ways to mitigate that, and there's ways to put a stop to things and think about that. Incident investigation can also identify and correct any unsafe conditions or acts or situations in the workplace where you could prevent accidents and people from having hardships. It brings up morale. Everybody goes home safe. It keeps the workplace going well, and you don't run into those problems. And one of the big reasons also is because it saves a lot of money. So whenever there's a loss, you have downtime. You have time to follow up on it. You may have claims, medical involvements, things like that. And overall, if you correct those things, you won't have that loss of money and problems from things like that. So we're going to look at some definitions now. We're going to define some things that are centered around incident investigations and how that plays into things here. So the first one is a loss. Okay, so as far as a loss goes, these are some different types of losses you might have. Injury could be an employee injury or personal injury, property damage, motor vehicle accidents, equipment damage, damage to your facilities, anything you may have there. Financial loss and downtime from having to follow up on losses, and some types of spills and leaks can also be a certain type of loss, whether that involves cleanup or hazmat or certain things like that. So those are some definitions of what a loss might be. Then we go into a couple definitions. One is an accident and the other is an incident, okay? A lot of people use these terms interchangeably, but there's really a little bit of a difference between the two, and I'm going to read these off. An accident is an unplanned, undesired event that results in personal injury or property damage, okay? Whereas an incident is similar. It's an unplanned event. It's an undesired event that adversely affects completion of a task. So incident is kind of more related to the workplace, the things that we do in work where people will say, oh, I got in an accident, I got in a car accident. That's also considered to be an incident. But an incident could be any type of thing like certain type of loss, damage, anything like that. So we want to focus on incident because that really pertains to all the types of losses that there could be, certain types of incidents, okay? Along with those, we have another term that's called a near miss, okay? A lot of people will call these a near hit because really you were nearly hit or almost hit or almost had an injury. And the definition of these is an incident where no property damage was or personal injury was sustained, but were given a slight shift in time or position, damage and or injury could have easily occurred. So this is something where you might have got really lucky. You know, something you were so close to having an accident, or something almost fell and hit you, or a car was sliding off the road and you were standing on the side and it swerved by and just missed you by a couple inches. Really close to having an incident, really close to having an injury of some type or damage, but you were lucky and you just narrowly avoided that problem. An example of this, there was one time I was in Arizona fishing on a river, and I was walking along. I had my friend behind me, and I'm walking along and I step up onto these rocks, and my friend behind me just starts screaming at me like, "Whoa, watch out there." What happened was I stepped right over the top of a rattlesnake without even knowing it. Didn't even see it there. That's an example of a near miss. I could have easily been bitten by the snake, could have ruined our whole trip for the day at the river, and was narrowly avoided. Almost happened. And so you can watch for things like that in your life and also the workplace and think about, wow, I got really lucky there. Something almost happened. We narrowly escaped that. But what are you going to think about to prevent that from reoccurring again? What actions are you going to take to make your workplace more safe or your personal life more safe? And that's what incident investigations can do for your organization. Taking time to look at those key details, factors of things that might have contributed to an incident, and preventing them so they don't happen again. So that's why we talk about the difference between accident, incident, and near misses, because they all really pertain to prevention and improving the workplace. So when we look at incidents, there's a couple things that play into this, okay? We've got one that's called a lagging indicator and one that's called a leading indicator. And there's a little bit of a difference here between the two. The lagging indicators are your losses. There's something that has actually happened before. Some type of injury that's quantifiable. You have, say, X amount of injuries for the year, or you've had X amount of numbers lost in accidents and injuries, things like that. Whereas the other is a leading indicator. It's a near miss, which happens before you actually have the loss, before you actually have a quantifiable injury or metric, okay? So your losses could be your OSHA recordable rates. Those are your lagging indicators. Could be your EMOD rate, whereas the leading indicators, if you can focus on those right there, focus on those things that might contribute to an accident, you can prevent having those lagging indicators that affect your bottom line. So we want to focus on those near misses heavily as well. Whenever we're doing an incident investigation, those near misses can be very critical to the success of your organization not having those types of losses. So we want to think about those types of things. Here's a question to consider also. Is there anything that scares you about your work environment? Think about that. Think about where you go each day. Supervisors, think about where you're putting your employees, the conditions in the work site. Is there anything that makes you uneasy or think, wow, we might get bit right there. We might have an accident, or we may have some type of hazardous situation there. Think about those types of things and think about, what can you do to overcome that? Incident investigation can help with contributing to that as well. So we're going to look at accidents now and talk about, why do incidents really occur? What happens is you look at this triangle on the left side. There's been some studies done on this over the years. Back in the 1950s, there was a scientist by the name of Heinrich that looked into details like this, and he looked at the behaviors of individuals and also looked into insurance rates and how these injuries led up to things. And what he found is he put this concept together with a triangle, and he found that with all of the unsafe acts that go on and all the unsafe acts and conditions, that's really what drives all of the type of injuries, near misses, severe injuries, and fatalities. So when you look at it, the more unsafe acts and conditions there are, the more likely you are to have near misses, minor injuries, and fatalities on up the triangle. But if we can focus on eliminating those types of things at the bottom, if we eliminate those unsafe behaviors, acts, and conditions, those others aren't going to follow. You're not going to have those types of problems in your organization. You'll have less injury, you'll have less near misses, less problems, less recordable accidents, and things like that. So accidents are really caused, and if we can focus on that, that's what we need to do to prevent those types of things. Incident investigation is that tool that helps you refocus on those types of things, focus on those acts, focus on how to make the job site more safe, and prevent those types of things down the road. So that's what it's all about for accident prevention. So there's a few principles we need to look at. If we have an incident investigation, we need to know that all accidents are preventable. If we focus on those things, there's some real solutions that can come out of it. If we sit down and really think about, all right, here's what happened, we had this accident, here's what we need to focus on to keep it from happening again. So we can prevent those types of things through using this tool. The other thing is we need to investigate all incidents, not just the accidents that happen, not just when somebody calls and says they've been in a car accident, not just when somebody's been injured and taken to the hospital. Think about it before. Consider all of those near misses, all of those different type of incidents that lead up to problems in the workplace. If we investigate all, we can come up with solutions to prevent all types of injuries and accidents. The key that you want to do here is you want to identify what's called a root cause, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail here. But the root cause is the real reason why something happened. And so you want to sit down and think big picture, think about what really could happen here and identify that root cause so you know what you need to prevent and what you need to work on to improve. So investigate all accidents. We talked about this, even the near misses. You might ask why. You know, it's going to take some extra time. It's going to take time to sit down and think about it, talk with people, look through things and report on it. But those near misses, like we talked about, are a real key indicator of what could happen. Remember, they are a leading indicator of things that might come. So what you need to watch out for are the Band-Aids and the duct tape. And what that means is, you know, if somebody gets hurt in the workplace and they put a Band-Aid on it, just simple injury, what's the real reason why they had that injury? You know, are you just seeing the bruise on the outside or the little scar on the outside? Or is there more that happened that you're not sure what really happened? Maybe they had a serious near miss where they could have been killed or even seriously hurt, and they came out with just a Band-Aid. But if you focus on those little things and investigate, you might find that there's more to the story than you realized at the first place. You might learn things that really happened as far as job situation, you know, the workplace, the environment, key details in your organization that you might be missing that are contributing to these types of things. So don't just overlook those small injuries. Don't overlook the near misses because they can be a real key indicator to what's going on out there. Okay. After you have an accident, you know, someone calls in and says, oh, I've been injured or I've been in a car accident. You're notified of some type of accident in the workplace. There's a reporting procedure that you should have where you want to get everybody involved and you want to have those all reported on time. Sometimes there's different reporting requirements, and your instant investigation should take place as soon as possible after that. What happens when there's an accident is sometimes the job conditions will change. Things will move around, key details will disappear, even knowledge of the incident will change over time. And so you want to get right on that. Get right on it right after the event occurs and start gathering that information. Gather the details, talk to people, report all that information out so that you can gather everything and have a full incident investigation and get the real details. Okay, so you gather people together and you want to talk about that. Okay, so that leads us to our next part, which is who gets involved in the incident investigation. Okay, who would you want to have as part of this? The number one person you're for sure going to want to have there is the employee, the person that was involved, person that was there, possibly the person that was injured. And then you want to have their supervisor. Supervisor is going to be a critical person involved in that incident investigation because they're going to be the one that drives it. They're going to lead the meeting, they're going to talk about it, and they're going to have some key details to help their employee to follow up with. So they're going to drive that. You may want to have some safety personnel there as well. They may help have a different angle on things. They may have some knowledge as far as a safety background where they can contribute to some, you know, guiding the discussion or have some experience on that. Another person you may want to have there is the witness. You may want to have that person that was there that saw it happen, that was able to see, that can give, you know, witness of what really happened and give you some details that maybe others missed during the time. And the last person you may want to have there is some type of an expert, possibly a legal expert, somebody that's worked on incident investigations before, someone with experience in the type of work you're in that understands the processes and procedures in the workplace, and they can give some real guidance and insight into, you know, what you need to know out of that incident investigation. So of all these people, you want to gather anybody involved that may contribute to the betterment of understanding how to prevent these types of things and what really happened in the workplace there. It's just critical that you want to have the right people in place to help lead that investigation. So question, why would you want to have a supervisor there? Why would you want to have them during the incident investigation? A lot of times, they're the first one on the scene. They may be near the employee. They may have information about that scenario that others don't have. They may know exactly where the employee was and what he was doing at the time. And a lot of times, the supervisor is the one that gets that first phone call. So if there's an accident, let's say you're in a motor vehicle accident, typically people will call their supervisor and say, you know, report the accident, say I've been in an accident. And at that time, that supervisor is going to get some key information right at that moment that may be lost over time down the road. And so it's important to have them involved in that whole process from start to finish in the incident investigation. And I would recommend that they're the ones that lead it. They lead it, they follow up, and they can follow up with accountability as far as assigning out solutions, as far as holding people to it, and making sure that things get put into place in the workplace that keep these types of things from happening. they know the details of the work area better than most people. They're supervising it, right? They have all the employees, they have the details, they know the scope of the work and everything. And so they're critical to that incident investigation to make sure that things get implemented correctly and followed up on. So I would always recommend having a supervisor there for that. So in an incident investigation, there's a few processes you're going to go through, and the first step is you want to make sure you collect all of that data. Like we talked about, you want to gather that right off the bat and not let material slide, not let things get moved on the job site, not let information get lost. You just want to collect all that right up front. And one of those ways you can do that is to interview. So you can bring people into the incident investigation and conduct an interview with people, talk to them about what happened, get some key details, have them basically paint a picture for the whole scenario of why it happened. Collect documentation, gather pictures, measurements, other key details. You want to get all that information about the accident, why it happened, so you can know and do your investigation on it to get the real details of why it happened. One thing to remember is that when you're doing an incident investigation, it is not an interrogation. So the person that was injured or involved, they may have a little bit of shame to it. They may feel a little upset, and you don't want to make sure that you don't want to place that blame on them. You want to make sure they feel comfortable and understand the reasons why you're doing that incident investigation, not that you're placing blame on them or making it difficult or picking on them in any way. The real reason you do these is to find out why, and you need to let them know that. So I would recommend at the start of any incident investigation, make sure your person that are there, make sure they understand that it's not picking on them, that you're just doing this as a procedure to try to make things better. And a lot of times they'll come around and understand that real reason why. There was a time a couple years ago I was doing an investigation over the phone, and we were asking this guy about how he got injured. He was walking on a project site and tripped over some rebar and ended up hurting his knee or ankle. And we were asking all these questions, trying to get details, talking through things, and all of a sudden the guy just got really upset, and he was getting worked up and aggravated, and he finally says, you know what, guys, I'm done here. I'm not going through this anymore. You guys are picking on me. He's like, I think this is a waste of time. And we just told him, we said, calm down. Really what we're doing here is we're trying to make this better for everybody. We're not picking on you. We're not calling you out specifically. We're just trying to get some details here of what happened so that your coworkers and other people in the workplace aren't going to run into the same problem. And after we took the time to explain that, he really understood why. He understood the reason why we're trying to do this and the process and how we're going through that. And he was okay to continue on. But I would recommend that when you're going to do these, make sure you're upfront with people. Make sure they understand that you're not just picking on them. You're there to find the real reasons why and going through the process to make it better for everyone. That's really the whole goal of an incident investigation, is to improve and eliminate hazards and problems down the road. So when you're doing your investigation, think about, what are you looking for? What are the main things you want to come out of this? Why are we meeting? Why are you going to fill out the reports and go through the time and get everybody together? There's really two reasons why you want to do this, and one is the contributing factors. We want to find out what are the factors that really led up to this. What job situations, what scenarios, what different events led up to the accident, and why do these things really happen? And then the other thing you want to look for is the root cause. And that's really, the real reason, the true reason why those contributing factors led up to the problem. The root cause is the root of all of the situation there. So,
hey, Brent, we got a question.
Yeah.
The question is, how soon should the interview occur after an incident? Should it be contingent on the type of incident?
Yeah, probably on the type of incident. I would say within 24 hours, you would want to gather as much information as you can and get that person on the phone. If they're injured or in a hospital or unable to talk, that's another scenario. But usually you can get all of that information gathered up within the first 24 hours. The sooner you get that, the better off you'll be down the road. There's been times we've gathered information within 24 hours, and then we'll actually have a committee get together and conduct the actual incident investigation a few days later. And that's okay, because it takes time to get everybody together, but you just want to make sure it's followed up on as soon as possible so you don't lose those key details.
Great, thanks.
So contributing factors, these are what we talked about. These are things that may have contributed to the incident, things that led up to it. One thing to know is that they are not actually the root cause. When people go through these incident investigations, they'll go through it and they'll think, all right, we've reached our root cause. When in reality, that's only the contributing factor, and there could be a lot more to the scenario than people realize. So looking at the picture here, you've got a guy that's losing his wheels in midair on his quad, right? What are the reasons those wheels came off? What are the contributing factors? Well, could be he went off of a jump and it put too much force on the wheels and they broke off. Or it could be the weather, the temperature on the wheels, could be lack of maintenance. There could be lots of scenarios and reasons why, but you want to find out what are the contributing factors that led up to that. But that root cause is a little bit more detailed. It has a little more of an underlying reason why that incident occurred. And that root cause, if you look at this picture of the onion here, is kind of like peeling back the layers of an onion. When you go to the grocery store and you pick out an onion or any kind of produce, sometimes you don't really know how good a quality it is. You know, that onion may be bitter, it may be sweet, maybe a little bit different, but when you want to look for a root cause, that root cause is that key detail down inside that you want to dig down and find. And so when you're doing your incident investigation, it's like peeling back the layers of that onion, breaking it down layer by layer, asking questions, digging down to try to get to that real root of why something happened. So when you're doing this investigation, trying to get to the root cause, make sure that you keep an open mind and always stick to the facts. Try to think outside of the box. Maybe there's something that led up to the accident that we're not realizing. Maybe there's more detail that we're not seeing. You know, what is the real underlying reason for that accident? And so this onion is an analogy for breaking that down further and further, layer by layer, until you get to the real answer why. But don't stop there. You don't want to stop in an incident investigation until you get to that root. Always keep asking questions. Think outside the box. Think with open mind. Try to come up with real reasons why and think deeply. And a lot of times you'll find things that jump out and stand out that you may not have realized in the first place. When somebody calls with an accident, they say, oh, I've been in an accident, here's what happened. Sometimes we jump to conclusions. Sometimes we think, oh, well, this is what happened, or oh, this is the reason why, this is really why it happened. And a lot of times all you're seeing is that outside of it, but you're not seeing that real root cause. So like the onion, when you pick out an onion at the store, all you see is the outside. You may not see all those key details until you start asking why and who and what and how and start breaking it down and getting more details. So that's the point of the incident investigation, is to keep going, keep thinking, try to break it down and keep asking those questions until you get down to that real root, the real underlying reason why something happened. So don't stop until you get to the root. So we can ask ourselves, you know, how do we analyze an incident and why it happened? There's many different techniques to this. Some are more complicated than others. They involve drawings. They involve breaking down charts and taking a lot of time to break it down. Such of these are, you know, causal analysis, change analysis, fault tree analysis. There's many different ways to do this. One of the things that I've found to be effective, they call it the 5 whys. And what it is you ask yourself why. You keep asking why and why and why 5 times. And if you do that, they say that if you ask why at least 5 times on a scenario, you will get to the real reason why something happened. So the 5 whys is a very simple approach that a lot of people use, very simple to put in place, and you just keep asking and drilling down until you get to that root cause. So here I've got an example of how we use the 5 whys and asking why to get to our root cause. So we've got a car here that's smoking. And we ask ourselves, here's our why questions. Well, my car won't start. Okay, so you'd ask, well, why? Why doesn't the car start? Well, the car battery was dead. Okay, well, people would stop there sometimes and think, oh, that's our contributing factor. Oh, that's our root cause. Car battery was dead. Time to change the battery. But if we go a little further and we keep asking why, we say, well, why was the car battery dead? Well, the alternator was not functioning. Okay, there's our root cause, right? Alternator was not functioning. Remember, don't stop there. Don't stop till you get to the root. Ask why again. So, okay, well, why was the alternator not functioning? Well, the alternator belt was broken. Okay, well, why was the alternator belt not broken? Well, the belt was beyond service life. Okay, well, why? Improper maintenance. Okay, why improper maintenance? And you can see how this goes on. There may be underlying reasons. You keep asking why and why and why this really happened. But if you stop there at the alternator not functioning properly and just time to replace an alternator, you might miss some of those key details as to why improper maintenance was not done. And so that's kind of the technique to the 5 whys. You just keep asking why, breaking it down more and more until you get to that real reason. It's a really good technique that we've used before that's very effective. So some questions you might want to ask in an incident investigation, you know, what were all the conditions like? What was the weather, the housekeeping? Lighting in the workplace, what was the temperature, noise, human factors? What are the key details you want to find? What were the conditions like that led up to it? These could be your contributing factors that stem from the root cause. You'd also want to ask, okay, was a safe work procedure used? Has conditions changed in the workplace that are not normal? Were appropriate tools and materials available? Were safety devices working properly? What are the administrative things that are involved, the management involved? What are all the things that might have led up to the accident here? Was there any type of equipment failure? Think about that in the incident as well. So this picture on the left is a picture of a swing set that failed where the connections broke loose and broke free. So was there a failure? What caused the failure? What caused that to come undone? Was it poor design? Was it poor maintenance? Was it lack of inspection? Improper equipment? You have to ask those types of questions to break it down and get to your root cause as to why. So I've got a picture here of what's called the accident weed. And what this is, it just breaks down kind of an idea of what a root cause means, gives an analysis to it. But what you can see is when you look at a plant from the surface, all you see is that plant. You see the flower, you see the leaves, you see the different things that are involved with the plant, but you don't always see the roots. You don't always see the underlying things below ground. And so doing your accident investigation is just like this, looking at the hazards, the things that are involved, and breaking that down and asking why. How come things happen? Why did it happen? When did it happen? Who was involved? And when you do that, you get to your root cause. So some examples of root causes are in this picture here. And you can see there's things like poor work procedures could be a root cause, lack of training, poor management, safety wasn't implemented properly, maybe lack of supervision, poor leadership. Those are all examples of root causes, okay? But when there's those root causes there, you can see what they lead to on the surface. You got your hazardous conditions on the left and you got your hazardous practices on the right. So you got missing guards, you got poor housekeeping, equipment failure, ignoring rules and procedures. Those are all things that result from those management and administrative things that are down below as the root causes. A lot of times people will blame an incident for happening on the employee's actions simply, or the equipment failed and they base it on that. But a lot of times there's underlying root causes that lead to that, like improper maintenance, for example. Why was improper maintenance tolerated? Why did the supervisor not enforce a procedure for maintenance? Or why was there not supervision on things? Those are real root causes and things that you really want to focus on because they are much bigger picture than a simple employee did something wrong or equipment failed. So think big picture. Try to think deep in your organization of why things are being that way. It comes down to safety culture a lot of times, and that could be part of your root cause as well. So if we look at an example, we've got an electrician here that changes out a ballast without locking out a circuit. He's working on a live wire, putting his life at risk, putting his life on the line. Why would he do that? If we do an incident investigation on this and find out, why is he doing those types of things? Is it because he hasn't been trained properly? Is it because the supervisor doesn't enforce safety? Is it because he's in a hurry and trying to get the job done fast and taking shortcuts? Are there incentives or other things that lead him into that? And you have to think about that because we all take actions, we all do different things in our life, but we can often run into mistakes. So think about those types of things. Think about why. What's the underlying reason why someone would take those chances and shortcuts and possibly hurt themselves in an electrical circuit? So that's just an example of what you might look into if that employee were to get injured and get electrocuted or have problems with something like that. So when you do this, you get all of your group together. We have the supervisor, the employee, the witnesses. You have your safety committee together and they investigate. The thing that you want to come out of this, the ultimate goal is to come up with some corrective actions because that's really where you're going to prevent things down the road. You want to try to come up with at least one corrective or preventative action for each root cause and contributing factor. So if you can identify what those root causes are, put things into place, take action on it, you're not going to run into those same problems down the road. And that's really the goal of it. So you want to have your safety committee get together. A lot of times they'll call it a loss prevention committee or a incident review committee or, there's different names for it. But if you get your committee together and they review this, it can really set the culture for preventing accidents and preventing hazards down the road. They lead and drive that culture in your company. What they do is they can review all of the incident reports that come in. They can talk about it, come up with actions, identify root causes, and come up with a goal as to what you can do in an organization to make things better, to improve and not have such issues in the workplace. they can develop those corrective actions. Follow up with supervisors, follow up with management, make sure that things are getting put into place and taking action accordingly. And they follow up and monitor the progress. So they could compare, you know, the past year versus other years as far as incidents and see trends, see what's going on, see what's really happening in the workplace, see what types of injuries and accidents have been occurring in the past year, and see if things are really improving or not. And that's where your safety committee can have a real effect on your culture for the workplace. So if they're driving that and reviewing these types of things and coming up with solutions, it's going to make the job better for everybody. They're going to come out with a lot better preventative actions and hopefully make that workplace more safe. So a safety committee can really drive that in follow-up to incidents. So in summary, we want to make sure that we investigate and review all types of incidents. Remember, don't just look at those Band-Aids on the surface. We want to drill down, get a little bit deeper, and think about what's the underlying reasons why these things are really happening. What's really driving this in our culture? You know, think about that. Make sure you review all types, whether it's a spill or a leak, vehicle accident, you know, injury in the workplace, property damage, whatever it is. Make sure you're hitting all of those because there might be key details that we're missing. Make sure that you involve everybody. Make sure they're involved in the incident investigation, the person involved, the witnesses, management, whoever needs to be there to follow up. Make sure they're involved in this process, that you're not just having an accident and hiding it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug and moving on. Make sure you follow up on those types of things. Make sure we're finding that root cause. Remember to ask why. Think about it. Think deeply. Think why did this happen and how can we prevent this again? And then what are the actions we're going to take to prevent these types of things? Identify those solutions and put those into place. It will go a long way in your organization for taking the time to do those things. And they've proven over time that the organizations that do that, as they implement those actions, they improve continually until it lowers their incident rates over time, lowers their losses, lowers their claims, and that's really the ultimate goal, to make sure everybody goes home safe without any type of loss or damage. So I recommend you do that and follow through on those. We'll turn it over to Jason now and see if anybody has any questions.
All right, thanks, Brent. Great job. Really good, concise coverage of that topic and how important it is. Just want to let everybody know that they can ask a question either in their chat box or the Q&A box. I haven't got any in right now. While you're typing those in, though, I'm gonna start a poll. I just want to get a little bit of an idea of what percentage of you out there have a formal incident investigation process. So you should have a pop-up come up on your window and ask you if you have something formalized to do incident investigation. And while that's coming up, if you come up with some questions, happy to have those come in. Doug, if you've got something that you want to chime in on at this time, you can do that as well. We've got almost got 50% of you have responded. And Doug?
I would just reaffirm, the real way to attack, unsafe incidences in the workplaces, like Brent was saying, is through, those leading indicators. What are those things that we can do ahead of time before an accident happens to prevent it from happening? And this is one of the best ones out there, is an effective incident review investigation where we identify real root causes. I love, when Brent said, ask why 5 times. Another thing I heard recently was, if your root cause is blaming the employee for something, you haven't really gotten to the root cause yet.
Great. Just for information, I'm not sure if everybody's able to see that. We had about 40% who didn't answer, so there's a good chunk that didn't. About a third of the total group has a formal process. About 20% of does not have a formal process, and there's about 9% that are not sure. So that kind of give you a little bit of an idea of how we're doing around. Here's a question. How do we go about signing our company up for TAP? What are the enrollment requirements? All right, who wants to take that one?
I think you made that one up, Jason.
Actually, I didn't. I probably owe the person that asked that question, lunch or something. That's a great segue. I did not make it up. Thanks, Jennifer. Actually, the TAP, the Trust Accountability Program, is something that any member of the trust can participate in. There is a application form when you're finished that you will submit, but to enroll in the process, you just start doing it. You start having your safety committee meetings, and we're going to be very involved with you for the next little bit. You may have received or you will be receiving some sample boilerplate policies and procedures. If you already have those in place, that's great. We thought we would make it just as easy as we can for the return to work program and the driver qualification program. We populated some forms with your information in that. On the return to work, we have a general, we went to regions and said, here's a network provider or an industrial clinic that would be a good place to send injured workers to. So we populated that. You'll see those. If you haven't already received those, you'll see those right away. We're also available to help you if you want us to come out and visit with your safety committee and kind of get you going on things. We can do some examples of incident investigation, or we can have. Or we can go through some of your materials. We can bring in a loss run of the different types of incidents that you've had over time and help kind of kick it off if you haven't had this formal process in the past. If you don't have a safety committee, we can do that. There's some things that take a little more time on TAP. The sewer requirements for those people that have that exposure, inspecting those. I know I've been talking to a bunch of our members that have gotten going on it because of the nice open winter that they've had. Some have already got their sewer inspections done for the year. So really the answer is you just kind of dive in and get that going. Get one of us involved if you have some questions, and we're happy to help wherever we can. Let's see. And there was a question to get a copy of the presentation and recording. Yes, absolutely. We can send the presentation out. We'll shoot a PDF out, as well as we're recording the session, and we'll place that up on our website. So everybody that signed up will get that information a little bit later today. Hopefully we can get the recording posted up on the website this afternoon. Okay. All right. I don't see any more questions coming in. Brent, we'll let you wrap it up.
All right, that's all, everybody. Thanks, and just remember to do those follow-up on the incidents. They can really make a difference in the long run. So thanks, everybody. Have a safe day out there.
Thanks. Awesome job, Brent.